Okay. Yeah, it's gone. All right, Randy.
Hey,
So
hey.
I actually have you saved on here as Randy Van Awesome, but that's
Awesome.
not
Yeah.
your real name, right? That's awesome. So Randy Van Osten, you and I went to seminary back in the day, and I'll actually say two compliments about you. Okay, is one, I always felt as though in the classes that we had together, I was like, I think this guy gets Jesus better than most people. And I don't know what it is about your temperament, but I think I remember you not really giving in to some of the squabbles that sometimes people do in seminary. But I think even since then, I've respected you from a distance with having started a Christian coffee shop, being a pastor, some of the stuff that you might put up on Facebook about some of your sermons, which I think are fantastic. But I also think you seem to be one of those pastors that understands being an activist at the same time in your own way. So
Yeah.
I have nothing but compliments. That's all. I've appreciated you from a distance. Yeah.
I appreciate that, John. I've always had the same type of feelings for you.
Oh,
Um, you know, I think it's great that we can see the body of Christ, even in amongst of a few people, because you were one that you were already very intelligent, and you had a good spiritual or theological grounding that a lot of times, like I didn't read a whole lot, maybe because I was in or I was owned a small business, so I didn't read, and even as you talk about in a few of the emails that you send out about kind of getting back to like church history and some of the early theologians, the early church fathers, I knew that you were into it. I always saw your journal, like you had that journal that you always brought with you to class that you always
yeah.
wrote notes in. And I don't know, like there's something about that really always, I was like, wow, I wish I could do that. And I start like after first got your first email, I started a journal again. I wrote 2 entries, and that was about it.
Hey, that's awesome. That's cool. That's awesome.
It's definitely an inspiration, brother.
Oh, thanks. I well, maybe we should just go ahead. Let me say, because some people might be listening to this rather than watching it on YouTube. So how would you describe yourself visually right now?
Some people say I look like a lion, from all the hair on top of my head, nice curly hair. I look like I have a lion's mane. There's a picture from me from Christmas Eve with my family, and they're like, it's like the king with his cubs.
Oh, that's
And
actually
I
a
was like,
great
oh,
one.
that's a
Okay.
good description. So I got a long beard. There's a lot more gray in my beard than on top of my head.
I got you.
Um,
Yeah.
but I got my tie-dye shirt on, like just rocking that as well.
Well, that's what your Instagram is, right? It's a hippie
Hippie
pastor.
pastor. Yeah.
You seem like you were born like to bring back the 70s in the right
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. Probably. Yep.
Um, but you know
That's why
what?
I have my car's a 1975. So, my own car.
Well, yeah, I think we'll talk about your amazing vehicle at the end. All right. But okay, so here's the questions I had thought for you. I said before that you seem like you're one of those guys that actually gets Jesus. It doesn't, because it seems like from what I've seen of you since seminary, you seem like a great combination of both being faithful and being an activist. And I don't mean like politically in that sense, but I mean you started a coffee shop, but also you have this newer thing called Lighthouse, which is absolutely impressive. And I kind of think churches need to be more active in their own communities and just not always talking about Jesus, but being Jesus. So can
Yeah.
you maybe share about the first off Treehouse and then Lighthouse and what's up with houses
Sure.
there?
Yeah. We got 2 houses now. Never thought of that. That's really funny. But yeah, the tree house, my wife and I owned that for just shy of 18 years. We kind of joked and said was hitting its 18th birthday, so it was time to go and experience the world as an adult.
Wow. Yeah.
um, but we had, I guess that, before we opened, our whole thing was all about. I had worked for a lady that owned. It was called the Living Room, and her mission was to be a light in the community. And so she had opened the coffee shop. After I started working for about 5 or 6 months, she had to sell the business, and this was the first food service job that I ever had, and it just flowed naturally for me. It's like one of those God things because I'd never done it before, and God just opened doors. I was managing it when she wasn't around, but so there was a group of us, like probably at least 10 of us, that really wanted to keep this vision alive of being a light in the community. But of course, things don't, God doesn't always make the short term, sometimes God takes you on a long journey. And so that was January of probably 2001 or 2002. It was January 2002. And it wasn't until May of 2003 that we opened our shop. So in that time, we had thought we could purchase the building from her and her business and move on, but we just didn't have the capital to buy the building at the time. It's just like one of those things where God was just working behind the scenes. But we get our name from Ezekiel 47 and Psalm 1, where it talks about trees planted by streams of water that have fruit to feed people and leaves to heal people. And so our whole mission was to be a place where people could feel God's love and his peace without having to have the word of God shoved down their throats. You don't have to always, like you said, you don't have to always speak about Jesus, but be about Jesus. And so in the matter of, like I said, those, whatever long it was, 15, 16 months, it was a long time. People, were like, well, this isn't going to work out. All the people kind of fell off. But my wife and I, and we had one friend that was helping us out at the time, and we had a whole lot of support, but there was one other guy, Kevin, that was like a silent partner at the time. But we had done it for 18 years, as we said, and it was hard. It was, as much as it was a blessing, it was hard because sometimes God doesn't always make it easy for you. I don't know if that's the right way to say, like you just sometimes get bugged because you're like, God, I'm doing this for you. Why aren't you bringing us the money? Like, not that we were asking for like millions of dollars, but
right.
We're just skimping by some days. Like there was like months where we didn't get paychecks, or we would get such small paychecks that like we would barely make it ourselves. And, but it was an opportunity to really be a church without the walls of a church, without being in the church. And so we were able to do it, and not saying that we loved every moment, if I'm completely honest, like it was hard. It was hard to be about the ministry while you're also trying to run a business. But yet to allow ourselves, because I think what I learned is that God didn't call us to do all the ministry. God called us to create a space available for ministry. So especially because we were in Collingswood for 5 years, and it was in that time, the last year that I was in Collingswood was when I had gone to seminary. We went to seminary together for the first year, and it was in that year that we felt God was saying, you need to move. And so we moved to a bigger space so that we could really fulfill our mission, not just providing good food for people, but creating a space, creating opportunities for people to really gather, because we basically doubled our size when we moved, and able to connect with more churches. We had more Bible studies meeting, more groups meeting. It was just really neat to see that. And as we always say, hindsight's 2020. I don't think we realized the impact we had. Like I felt, and I want to be honest, like I felt like a failure a lot. Because we barely made it.
Or what was the sense of failure?
Because we hardly made any money.
Okay.
but that's not success, right? I mean, if we look at the eyes of the, biblical,
Uh-huh.
vision of what real success is, it's not about making money.
Right.
Um, it's about changing lives, building relationships. And I mean, we built so many relationships. And I think that's where I would see the things. And I think it really came to light. I mean, we would see it like, glimpses of it when people would be coming home from the hospital and they'd bring their little babies that they just had on the way home. Because, like, we
Oh,
needed
that's
to see the
amazing.
treehouse. And, I've been able to perform weddings of customers. I've been there for funerals and other stuff as
Mm.
well. But it was when we were closing our shop. As I said, we closed after 18 years. But it was in the last week after we made the announcement that we were closing. That whole week was nuts. Uh, like,
Well, you shut
like,
down the street, right, for the end party?
yeah, yeah, because there was a line down the street too.
That's awesome.
Like, literally the last day, there was a line down the street all day long. Like, people were waiting in line for hours, like literally hours, waiting to come and say their
Wow.
final goodbyes, and just to say how much the treehouse meant to them. You don't realize, I guess, what good you can do by not even have. I mean, yeah, we had to do a lot. I'm not going to say it was easy, um, by the stretch of the means.
Uh-huh.
Um, but like, I think I'm just so thankful that God gave us that opportunity to have that glimpse of the seeds that had been planted over that time, of the seeds that had been watered. um, it's just amazing to see, because it's, we live our lives as Christians. We're always taught it has to be inside the church, like you need to
Hmm.
get people to church on a Sunday. But man, like, you can reach people, like outside of the church. There's so many people that really just need the word outside of the
Hmm.
church, and they're never going to step foot in your church. So this is it's a great
Absolutely.
opportunity.
I
Um,
always thought you just made me think of it. There's some people have the mindset that the end line or the finish line is getting people into the pews, right?
yeah,
But actually that's the start of the journey. Cuz to me the finish line is going back out.
yeah,
And so it's like, where's the real end goal here? Is it try to get as many people in this one building? Or is it trying to launch people out of the building, like you said, to maybe incarnate the word of God in their own life outside of that building?
yeah. I mean,
Like
that's
that's
the,
the
the
game changer, right? That's the Christmas incarnation principle. Yeah.
yeah, to be incarnate wherever you are, because it's not the pastor's job to do all the work. It's all
Hmm.
the people. Everyone has their gifts. Everyone has their mission field, really. I think that's where we kind of lost it, is that we thought missionary was people that went overseas or went to certain areas. But, like, you're a missionary, I think, really wherever you are, like
Absolutely.
whatever you find yourself. If you're working your job place. And I'm not just saying you have to evangelize everybody. You don't have to bring some pocket tracts and, like,
Yeah.
but just being Jesus to people. Like, people see it. People know if you're for real. Especially today, they don't want to hear it, because they've seen Christians. There's some really bad versions of Christianity out there right now.
Right.
We've seen a whole lot of it right now. Some just awful versions of Christianity. So they want people that are authentic and that are really
Mhm.
following Jesus. And I think that's really so important, that it doesn't matter who you are. Like, you don't need theological training to go and be Jesus to people.
Right. I think I don't remember who I learned it from, but the word Christian just means little Christ, maybe a
Yeah.
lowercase c. We're not saying uppercase C, but
No, no.
what does it mean to be a little Christ in your community? You're following in Jesus's footsteps, you know? That sounds like that's a pretty fulfilling life. I bet probably that last week, like you said, and even that last day, you probably saw the strong emotions of thankfulness and appreciation of people, you know?
Yeah. I
You
mean,
must have
just thank.
wept, I bet.
Yeah, I did. There was some crying to be done. So just, I mean, even like my family came out, and my wife's family. So it was, and they had been a part of it, like our extended, like our siblings and stuff had all been a part of it. And, you know, just being able to share those moments together and to see it and to, like I said, like not everybody, you don't always get to have that glimpse of the impact that you've made in this side of eternity. Most of the
Right.
time, we don't find out till we get to heaven. I forget what song that is. Um, there's that song from like the 80s or 90s where it talked about like, I can't remember what it is now. It was a pop Christian song, but you know, about heaven,
I hope
about
it's
how
Rich
they.
Mullins. Yeah.
It might be Rich Mullins. I can't remember. Now I'm drawing a blank. It's going to hit me like 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to wake up in the
That's funny.
middle of the night, like, oh, that
Yeah.
was the song.
But you know what's going on with how you're wired? Because shortly after you closed that shop up, then it seemed like you started having some ideas for Lighthouse as well.
Well, actually, it was like in that time. Like that's the crazy part. So I think you know I really believe um, you know from the beginning. I'm trying to think straight. I didn't ever want to get into ministry in a mainline denominational church. Um, Actually, when I started seminary the first year, I was like, I really don't think I'm fit for a mainline denominational church. It's
Hmm.
we got burnt at the church I grew up in. We had some church hurt from there, and there's actually one point shortly thereafter that my wife and I tried starting a different storefront church. We had met in a shabby chic store in Collingswood as well, and we're doing church out of there. It didn't grow too much, unfortunately. You know, it just wasn't what God had planned. But I still think it was there for a season, and I think for a reason. Um, but I never felt like I was supposed to be called to there. But then, you know, God has plans, and I think part of it was for me to help churches possibly see something different. I don't want to be egotistical saying that I know the answers because I'm still like, I don't know all the answers, but I'm a person that can think out of the box. And I don't mind thinking out of the box. And so I think that's always been in the back of my mind. But I did grow up in a mainline denominational church. You know, I grew up with the thoughts of if you just put a sign outside of your church, people are going to come into church, you know, which kind of,
Yeah.
what was I thinking, you know, like, nope.
It's like Field of Dreams mindset. If you build it,
Yeah,
they will
yeah.
come.
If you build it, they will come. Um, but when we were in seminary together, we had that class with Ron Sider, and I can't remember the name of that class, but it was about the whole gospel to whole peoples, and I just remember
Absolutely.
writing a paper about how we envisioned, I think, church or this type of ministry, and I just remember including all these different elements that we talked about. And the really funny part I just wanted to mention real quick is the TA for that class is now the pastor of the church I grew up in.
All right. Wow. Full circle then, huh?
Yeah, and my mom and my brother still go to church there. It's just really funny when I saw him. I was like, he looks so familiar. Who is he? And he told
Uh,
my mom, "Oh, I had your son. I was a TA in the class your son was in." But that's always been in the back of my mind. All those things that we kind of learned from Ron Sider that year about the whole gospel to whole peoples,
yeah.
and just doing ministry, like as we've said, you know, being Jesus. And so they've been in the back of my mind. And during COVID, it was summer of 2020. A group of us kind of were walking through the church. We don't have a huge church, but we have a good sized church. And we're just like, well, what can we do with this space? You know, like I've always hated that churches sit empty for the most part, 95% of the time.
Of the week, you
Um,
mean?
of the week, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
of course.
I mean, they're open a few hours a week, basically. And so, what a waste of a resource. And so we got to dreaming about it, but life got sidetracked, and we kind of just put it to the wayside. And I don't remember the exact moment, but I just remembered it was like November, and I was like, you know, we really need to respond to people's needs. The church is
Wow.
something different than just Sunday mornings because um, I think COVID, as much as harm as it has done, and it has, you know, I'm not
Hmm.
trivializing the loss of hundreds of thousands of people,
Hmm.
um, but I think there's also learning that can be done in the midst of difficulty and problems. You know, we get shaken out of our routines and out of things that we find normal, and we, have to search for a new normal or search for what's next, I guess.
Right.
And so,
Is the word for that pivot? Like things have to
pivot,
pivot.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, pivoting, yeah. I think that's a great great term. And so during that time, it was like November, and I just remember being like, let's go back to what we talked about over the summer. What kind of things can we do with our church space? And so we're like, we've housed the town food pantry for the last 15 years. So it's a conglomerate of really 4 churches that are really involved with it. And so we're open every single week, 4 times a week or 3 times a week. People can come once a week and get food for a week, a good amount of food.
Hmm.
And so we saw the numbers like skyrocket during the pandemic. Like,
Of
I
people that
believe at
needed
one,
food.
for people that needed food. We also saw, which was incredible, the amount of people that donated during the pandemic. Like, there was never a time where our shelves were empty because the community responded so
Wow.
well. It was amazing. It was amazing. But I mean, there was a point where I believe that at one point we were feeding over 700 people in a month. Um, yeah, it was
Or were they
crazy.
mostly within walking distance of your church?
Yeah, I mean, some get rides. Like, we were open to anybody during the pandemic. Any person that needed food, we never turn people away, which I love about our food pantry. It's not like um,
That's
we're ever going to
incredible.
turn anyone away. If you need food, we're going to give it to you. So we saw the need jump there, and so we said, well, if they need food, they're going to need other resources as well. So we had the idea of the thrift store. And the cool thing about the thrift store that I really, really appreciate is that the church had a thrift store before. It was called Fig Leaf, and it was one of the pastor's wives. The pastor's name was Sweeney. His wife started it in 1967, and it lasted
Wow.
about 10 years. And the money, I love that it wasn't used to meet church budget. The money was never intended to go back into the church. It was used for different projects and different things throughout time. Like, one of the cool things was that it helped with the first Habitat for Humanity house in Pitman. So that's
Oh
just really
yeah.
neat to see that. So they did that for 10 years, and um, there's pictures of the different places, because it started in a closet in the church, like this small little closet in the upstairs classroom.
Hmm.
Then they moved to the church parsonage because there was nobody in the parsonage. But then when somebody was coming in, they decided to move. There's the historic section of Pitman that's called the Grove.
Hmm.
Um, and so it moved. The borough owned a house that they let the church use. But then for some reason it moved, and it had 3 different homes in the Grove over time. But it was just a great space for people to not just get clothes. I mean, everything was like 5 cents to a quarter. Back in the 60s and
Oh
70s,
wow.
that's how cheap everything was.
Yeah.
But it was also like a place where it created community. Um, so it was just really neat. So we were able to bring that back in a way. We kept the name Fig Leaf. So our,
Oh,
our
okay.
name's Fig Leaf Thrift. But that was only the first step in what we wanted to do, which the bigger vision was really the Lighthouse Community Center, because we felt that community is so important, and it's so lost in our day and age right now. Like, there's so many uh, people just don't have the community anymore that they used to
Hmm.
have, and so we wanted to create a space, and we thought that um, the fig leaf could be the first step in that. And so it's just been really awesome to see that kind of take thing, but we wanted to do more than that, a lot more than that.
Did you ever have any
Now,
pushback from people that didn't think that was the right move to make?
we've had pushback more for the use of space. There's, like the fight of whose space is it and who should use it. Like, even at first, when I first brought it to leadership, like, I thought they were going to be like all about it. Like, and I met with a group of people that I knew had shared the same vision that I did, like, already. Like, I didn't have to say much. I knew they were going to be behind me to begin with. And so I talked with them, and some of them were in the church, and some of the people were from the community.
Mm-hmm.
It was a little bit of both. And so I knew that I had my go-to group, I guess you could say, like my people that were already in my corner. So I was like, all right, let me take it to my leadership team. I know they're going to be behind it. And I was just like, oh, I felt like a deer in headlights. Like when I kind of got the resistance that I got, like,
Uh-huh.
and a lot of it really came down to building use. And I finally was like, you all understand we used like where the fig leaf, I already had like planned where things were going to be. I needed to come up with some kind of thing to present to leadership. Not like this is like what I'm thinking, but this is steps that we want to take moving forward. And so we were taking over the social hall
Mm.
for Fig Leaf, and people are like, "Well, what about community dinners? What about this?" And I'm just like, um,
Mm.
as I get to more about other parts of Fig Leaf or Lighthouse that would be awesome to do down the road. Um, we're going to take up a lot more space than we're taking right now. But
Okay.
I thought everything except for the thrift store is a versatile space. Nothing is set for one thing only. And I think that's so important, like I've never wanted to reserve an area for 1 hour on a Sunday or 2 hours on a Sunday, and you can't
Mm.
use it the rest of the week.
Right.
But I definitely got resistance, especially about like the use of the social. And I'm like, you guys, we use that 4 times a year at the most since I've been here.
Wow.
Like it
Okay.
hasn't been used that much. And I think once I started explaining it and talking about it more, people got behind it.
Yeah.
And there was still some like different resistance, but nothing like people that were really against me. Nobody left the church over it. Um,
Do you feel as
maybe
though
other stuff.
maybe doing all of that though kind of yes, doing things like missions or outreach or activist oriented trying to benefit people around you, it helps the people that you're helping, but I also feel like sometimes those types of things soften the hearts of the people that are volunteering themselves, you know?
Oh yeah,
It's almost like my understanding is a lot of churches we fall into the mistake of being very informational and not so much about the transformational stuff. Let's do what changes us, not necessarily only what changes other people or educates other people. Let's be changed ourselves. And that's almost like a hidden agenda that you hope your own people will be shaped a little bit more like Jesus, you know?
yeah, yeah. And you're giving them an opportunity, I think. And it's still like a really hard push or sale. I don't know, like to
Yeah.
get people to think past Sunday mornings. People are so stuck on Sunday mornings. Like, I don't know, like I think so many churches fall into it. I mean, if you look at most church budgets, if you look at most church, whatever, like their annual reports, whatever you want to say, the majority of money and time is spent on Sunday mornings, 1 hour. Like,
Wow.
it's ludicrous to me. Like, and so that's always bugged uh, the crap out of me. Can I say crap?
Yeah, that's fine with me. But hold on. You know what? I always heard it put that maybe this was Ron Sider. He would talk about how a church's budget is its value statement.
Yeah.
And we often think about the budget in line with the roles or the purposes, but I thought that's interesting thinking about a church budget from how much of the majority of this money is spent on just Sunday morning activities.
Yeah.
Wow, that's like a whole other framework to look at it. Like, should a church's budget be primarily about what happens on Monday through Saturday? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, that really, it's made me think a lot about ministry and about the church and about the role of the church and what the church really is over time.
Uh-huh.
I mean, because if you think about it, so many churches expect the pastor to put, X amount of hours into a sermon. I mean, if I really practiced what my one homiletics professor said, it should be 1 hour for every minute you preach. And I was just like, 20 hours or
That's a long
more on a
time.
sermon? That's a lot of hours for one like message. Like I'm just like it blew me away.
But doesn't that
Um,
show an informational bias? It's
yeah,
all
the
about
infinite
sharing information. It's not
information.
about
Yeah,
incarnating Jesus. Ooh,
No, and that was
it's like getting offensive right now.
yeah. Well, that was something. It reminded me of something we tried doing a couple times, and where we at one point we had two services pre-COVID, and so during the one, a couple times in a year, I wanted to do it more, but it was really difficult where we didn't have service. We went out and did service, which I know other churches do that. Some of churches,
That's
but
cool.
like we did it Palm Sunday a couple years, and it was just really neat. We had found out ways to connect with people in the community that needed help in some way. Like we raked leaves, we cut down some small bushes, we cleaned a house, but it was just an opportunity for us to get out of the church
Mm.
and probably do what we're not like informational, but transformational, where we're transformed and we're helping show people that, yeah, people do care about you
Oh yeah.
and people are there to help you. But it does I think that's where we kind of mess up because we expect Sunday mornings to be this like just like the overarching thing of our faith, and I think that's kind of where the
Mm.
church is really screwed up, like because we've made that the be all of being a Christian. Really, is like as
Mm-hmm.
long as you attend church on a Sunday morning, you're okay,
Right.
like. But it's being a Christian, being a Jesus follower is a daily thing, like there's so much more to it.
Mm-hmm.
And
So
that why
much
do we
more
think the church?
exciting when you think that way too.
Yeah, I don't know if like I've heard it shared before. Like during the week, you're your own light, um, and there's different ways that you can keep your light lit. But then on
Mm.
Sunday mornings when you come together, it's kind of like you reflame each other, you rekindle each other,
Wow.
which is good, and very much needed. We need to have fellowship with other believers. We need to be in worship together. Um, but what are we doing the rest of the time? Like, and is Sunday morning, is that the only type of gathering that Christians should really be in? Um,
Mm. Well, I've been having this idea that like God doesn't wait till we have a formal 501c3 before it's qualified as a church group.
yeah.
If you've got
Yep.
your little Jesus gathering of two or three who are gathered and you're trying to be light together, I'm pretty sure God looks favorably upon people trying to be love incarnate to the people around them. But a church services sometimes to me feel like um for lack of a better word, uh just passive or interpassive. Sometimes it
Mm.
feels like it's let's come and watch the people in front have faith,
Yeah.
right? And I
Yeah.
think Soren Kierkegaard, he talks about how we have the roles backwards. We sit in the pews and we grade what we hear, but actually it's more like the other way around, where the pastor or the people up in front, it's almost like a theater. They're the director of the play. They're reminding us the lines that we're supposed to be saying. And
Mm.
so the performance thing is switches. They're not on the stage. We're on the stage and they're reminding us our lines in the play. I'm like, I guess because he started to see the church becoming very passive and theatrical, which that's also part of the Sermon on the Mount. The word hypocrite is a theatrical term, right?
Yeah.
Comes from
Yeah. I
theater.
mean, we, that was part of like the two services that we started to create at the church. We had our traditional service because there was very much the people that wanted tradition. And I don't really like the term contemporary because I think it's too loaded of a term. But we called it interface because that's
Okay.
more of like, a relationship, a meeting, and so I probably could have spent more time trying to really develop that, but it was really difficult
Hmm.
to get people to try stuff that was different. Because
Mm.
it just reminded me of, we go to church expecting entertainment, expecting to be entertained, to play a passive role, like you said. Yeah, we might get up and sing some songs or put our hands in the air or clap or maybe clap off beat, probably. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
but but like you would try to do different things to try to include them. Like I said, why don't we like I tried having times where people would break up into groups, and people are like, we don't want to do that. And I'm like, really? Like, they're like, no, we don't want to do that. And I'm like, wow, like we just want to be talked to. There was a few times where I would ask questions, and I would, it was more of I tried to do more of a discussion based sermon, or
Mm.
where people could put their 2 cents in or share some of their own thoughts, where it wasn't just on me, the pastor, that had to give everything. But I mean, I still did the majority of the talking, but it was just really interesting that people can't get past that um, passive role in church. Well, we have that paid pastor, he should be doing every part of the service, or we're just come to sit in the pews. And it's that thing where well, what did we learn today? What did we take out of church today? Well, I didn't feel God today. Well, whose fault's that? No, no, I'm just kidding.
Okay, here's
um,
I think this is probably why I don't know. Maybe I always felt a little bit of kindredness with you. I think you're also another one of those people that's okay poking the bear just a little bit. And there's like a
yeah,
way of poking the bear where you can make people angry, but there's also I thought of this maybe like 2 weeks ago. What about tickling the bear? You find the bear that everybody's afraid to talk about or touch, and you find a way to tickle it. Be like, no, this could be our friend if we're willing to
yeah.
confront this thing that we're afraid to confront. Um, I'm curious. We gotta wrap it up, but let me ask you, what do you think? What would be one of your hopes for the church at large in post-COVID world? Okay, if we're on the outlying transition out of COVID, what do you think is your hope for the church moving forward?
My hope would be that they didn't just return to what they did before.
Mm.
I think that we're at such as you said, a pivoting point in
Hmm.
church history. I mean, I've heard it said so many times, every 500 years, the church goes through some sort of reformation or reawakening. And I think we're at a time of such a
Could be right now.
reawakening right now. Yeah, I believe it. Um, I believe it. We're at a time it's so crucial to the church. Not that the church can't survive without us, because Jesus builds the church. That's not our job. Um, but we have such an opportunity, and I think there's more of an openness to change in this time than ever before in the church. Not saying there won't be resistance to change. As I said,
Hmm.
trying to do the things that we've done at our church, which I didn't even get to describe all that we're doing and all that we plan to do, which we could do another time if you'd like.
Sure,
Um,
that'd be awesome.
but it was just to stop just focusing on Sunday mornings. Um, I, I think that if the church could really go and be Jesus throughout the week, if it's equipping your people to do that in their own lives, or figuring out ways to do it as a community,
Hmm.
as a group of people. I mean, it's so we all have the opportunity. Um, so I think for me, it's not just about getting people through your doors on a Sunday. The old ABCs. It's not about attendance, buildings, and cash. That's not success in the church. Or
Right.
I really think it's success is when we can take the message with us, and that we can meet
Mm.
people's needs, whatever those needs are. And I think, yeah, growth might be slower, when you're meeting people's needs and you're not just trying to evangelize them. But I think building those relationships is so key. And I think my hope for the church is that they would do that, that they would get out into their neighborhoods, um, go and see the need, go and meet the people, go and build relationships with their community, however they can do it, and then see the need of the community and meet that need, um, and be known as a church that loves the community or loves the people. I would love
Yeah,
for all of our churches. That's my hope, is that churches would be known as churches that love people. I
that's
think that's so
brilliant.
important.
And it's also like
Yeah.
the most orthodox, center of the tradition, obvious thing to say, but
Yeah, but it's not easy, is it? Like we it's
no.
it's so it's so simple, yet it's so hard. Um,
There's a lot of laying down your own ego to even help
yeah,
other people, not alone just be helped.
yeah,
There's a lot
yeah.
of
It is, and
telling people how they need to be helped, and that's not it either.
no, it's just trying to find that need. Like I just love the fact that the thrift shop. The cool thing about it is that we're set up now for when there is a need. We already have stuff that can help people right away, and to me,
Mm-hmm.
that is so important. That's so key. And people are like, "Well, we've tried the church thrift shop thing before," and I'm like, "Well, why are you doing the church thrift shop? Is it to meet your budget? Or is it to really meet someone's need?"
Right.
And so for me, none of that money goes into the church budget. All the money is used for other stuff. But we were able to um, help a family that lost everything in a tornado.
Oh,
We sent like I don't even know how many bags of kids' clothes for back to school, so kids could have new outfits for school, or teachers could have new outfits. You know, gave those away for free. We've helped single parents that just didn't have enough for their kids, and we're just like, well, you can come and take whatever you need. You can come and shop basically for what you need, and it's amazing to have that resource available. Not like, all right, church, we need to figure out where we can find the stuff because it's already there. And we're already building community in that space because we have people from the church that volunteer and people from the community that volunteer, which is just, it's so incredible to me. Like, it's not just church folk that are like, we need to help each other. It's people in the community like, we see the importance of what this does and we want to help out with it. And so I think it's a simple way to show love. I
oh
think it's
yeah.
so simple. Um,
I think everything you just said is why you're an impressive human being. No, I'm being serious. Like being compassionate means that you're willing to suffer with other people, and that means recognizing the need. But also, what's cool is, like you said, it's almost as though you already have the infrastructure to help people when they finally come to you. It's not as
yeah, and
though people are coming to you and then you're scrambling. You're already ready to help.
yeah, which is, I don't know, like to me, like that just it feels like what we should be doing, right? I mean, if we keep going back to the early church, right? The early church knew it, and they pulled all their resources together.
Yeah.
And so when there was a need arose, they were ready to meet that need. And so many times we are not poised in such a position to be helping people right away. Like, all right, well, give us a few days, then we can help you. I was thankful we had our fire inspection the other day, which it's kind of stressful in a way because you never
Yeah.
know what they're going to find in an old church building. But when he got down to the thrift store, he's like, "Oh, this is new. Are you selling this stuff?" I was like, "Well, it's a pay as you can type place. We do pay, but it all goes into nonprofit work." I said, "But we also try to help people when they have a need." So I was like, "If you know any of the people that have a house fire and lose anything," I said, "please send them our way." He's like, "Oh, I'm going to tell the fire chiefs tonight at our meeting." And I'm like, "Thank you," because you're trying to get the word out there
That's
is
awesome.
really important. Yeah,
Hey, that's
God
so
just
good.
opens the door. Yeah, it's really cool. So,
And
and there's
hopefully that
other
reputation will
ways.
keep growing too.
Yeah, and it's really neat because we do have the reputation with some of the businesses in town. They've really helped out. Like one of the clothing stores, it's a women's clothing store. Just a young woman owns it, and she gave us like her leftovers from last summer, and so we were able to sell those. I think it was last summer. I forget. It was like stuff that had gone out of style, I guess. But I mean, it
Okay.
was probably hundreds of dollars worth of merchandise that she donated because she believed in what we were doing. And it's just like seeing those connections really is so important.
Last two questions, I guess.
All right.
All right. Uh, we already referenced your van. You just have to make mention of it fast. Doesn't have to be
Okay.
long. How awesome
Yeah,
is your vehicle?
it's awesome. I'm so thankful my wife found it and said, you should buy this. It's a
Is it
1975,
1970 what?
1975 VW camper van. Um, so it's really awesome. We've owned it for about 4 years. It was my daily driver for a while. I would drive it all the time, which this time of year wasn't great because there's no heat. Um,
Okay.
but it's a bright orange, and as I said, it's a camper. We've only camped in it once or twice. We had to get some work done, so we're hopefully going to do that this spring and be camping a lot more this summer because our schedules opened up a lot more after we sold our business, or after we closed our business. We'll have more time to work on it and get it really camping worthy. But it's awesome. 1975, bright orange, back seat folds down, top pops up.
I want to
So
get a
it's
picture of it because I'll put it up with this. That'd be
oh, okay.
funny. If
I'll
there's,
definitely send you a picture.
isn't there
And her
one of
name's
you just like
Dorothy.
waving?
Yeah, her name's Dorothy.
Oh, that's
So
great.
yeah, you're
There's a
supposed to
few
name her
times.
after your one of your grandmoms. That's what I heard. Somebody said you name your old VW after one of your grandmoms. And I couldn't do my mom's mom because they have the same name, and I thought that would be really weird to have my
Oh,
car named Norma and my mom's name's Norma. So I was just like, nah. Dorothy just seemed to really fit. Dorothy's just
oh
a
yeah.
great name. So it is funny because after I bought her, it seems to be like the thing to get me anything that people that find that's Volkswagen. Like I got Volkswagen stuff in my church office, like different cars. Somebody got me this. It's right behind me. This mug for Christmas.
That's awesome, man.
Oops, I keep not knowing where my thing is.
Oh,
Maybe I
there you
should
go, right in the
figure it out.
middle. Yeah.
There we go. So yeah, so that was my Christmas thing. So it seems to be kind of common. My mom and somebody else found wrapping paper with Volkswagen buses on it. So yeah.
You know, every so often, you ever meet somebody that they have the right kind of dog for their personality? You're like, yes, you are. Well, sometimes the same thing's true with a vehicle. You're like, oh yeah, that's the personality right there. So
Yep. Yeah. Most people
how would
say that.
anybody find? Do you have a Lighthouse website where people could maybe just look at it and maybe?
Yeah, we're you can find us on Facebook or Instagram. Just the Lighthouse Community Center in Pitman is probably the best way. We don't have an actual website, but you can look us up on Facebook and Instagram.
Cool.
Yeah,
And you're a hippie.
it's a great thing. Hippie pastor on Instagram. Follow me. I'd love to get more followers.
All right.
I
Well,
look cool for once.
we'll do this again in a few months or a few weeks, whatever.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah, I'm game, man. This is great, man. It's really awesome.
Okay. We'll see you again. All right.
All right, man. Be blessed.